That's right.
Oh.
Yeah. To today's Board of Commissioners work session, we are pleased to have with us today Judge Brendan Murphy of Magistrate Court to provide his presentation for the 23-24 budget.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners, Dr. McMorris. It's good to see everybody. I'm here today to ask you to re-sign Freddie Freeman. It's going around. Right, so if you can find a line item, find a line item. No, I'm very excited to be here to talk about our 23-24 budget. Do we have the clicker? Thank you so much. And so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to keep us as close to the half hour as possible. You'll have to forgive me because I have thrown in lots of pictures of us because I love our team. Our team does a lot with a little, and so I like to share, share these folks with you. Today with me, we have Tanisha Phillips. She is our court administrator. And we also have Ann Gordon. She's our clerk of court. So I want to give them both thanks for helping prepare the budget, prepare this presentation, and also Maria from Budget and Bill's team. They've been incredibly helpful in this process. We wanted to go through a process, so internally with the court, got all of our leadership together to assess the needs, not the wants, because that is my commitment every time I come before this board. So what are we going to talk about today? I'd like to talk about our mission, our challenges and opportunities, and how this board can assist our court in protecting and advancing the mission as we move forward. Our mission, we are the people's court. You hear me say that wherever we go. That is because we're easily accessible to the public. We have many folks unrepresented in our court, and so that's a key part of our mission. I call us a court of first impression and a court of last resort. So the court of first impression is on the criminal side of the house. We handle the first 3 or 4 hearings in any criminal case, most criminal cases that come through the county. And so we have to do that professionally so that people have buy-in to the criminal justice system. If you don't feel like you were treated fairly at the very beginning, you're never going to buy into the result. And that could be whether you're the accused or the victim. So it's critical that our court gets it right on the front end. On the civil side of the house, we're a court of last resort. I know we have at least one lawyer on the board and several other in the room. When you think of a court of last resort, you usually think of the Supreme Court, your final appeal. Well, in what we do in eviction cases, in small claim cases, oftentimes we are the court of last resort because the time to appeal is very quick and it's very costly. So on the civil side of the house, we have to get it right because we may be that individual's only day in court. So when they come to court, we want to provide a meaningful day in court where people are heard efficiently, welcomed, and treated with courtesy, dignity, and respect. That's just a baseline. That's a baseline expectation. Finally, Cobb County says expect the best, as I'm sure other department heads have mentioned to you. At the magistrate court, it doesn't matter much if you expect it and you don't get it. So my expectation is we are the best. And so you'll see that on social media. We are the best. We provide the best customer service. I don't like the word customer. I haven't found a better word yet because I don't sell anything and people don't have a choice when they come to our court, but we want to treat them like they have a choice. So help me find a better word and we'll come up with it. And that's through customer service and innovation. Innovation not only technologically, but really getting outside the courthouse and getting into the community. And we want to make sure that people feel like the court system is a justice system. It's not a building, it's a process, it's an ideal. That's some more of us. We love partnering with different folks in the county. That was the Senior Services Food Drive, celebrating our Hawks, all kinds of different celebrations. So what's our team? A couple of key points as different departments come before the board. We are one team of 75 plus individuals with one budget. So some courts will come before this body twice. Court administration will come, and then an elected clerk of court will come. With our department, there is one elected chief magistrate judge, and then the clerk and all 75 folks fall under that same budget and that same election. So magistrate court only gets to come once. So as you're looking at our budget, it's something important to remember. I've cited our code sections. Oftentimes we're asked about the authority in as an independent elected official. Those 2 code sections reference the governing authority of the county funding the magistrate court. It deals with the people and with the stuff. That's why they're 2 different code sections. We are not funded by the state whatsoever. All funding for magistrate courts across the state comes from the county commission in each county. and there are 159. We're not circuit-based like the other courts. There are 159 magistrate courts across the state. So what do our people look like? Over half of our folks are in our clerk's office. About a quarter of our folks are judges, and those are by and large part-time judges. We could have 100 part-time judges, and it doesn't affect the budget because part-time judges are only paid when they work. But about a quarter of our roster is judges. Then we have a pretrial division, and then administrative is our assistants, our law clerk, and folks like that. We also have 7 temporary positions, as you well know, and we appreciate y'all providing that federal funding for our court to assist in rental assistance, mediation, and working through the backlog. We also have some other folks that assist from other departments in our court. We had to brag on ourselves a little bit. I think what more could you ask of a court than to be awarded during COVID-19 when everybody was working so hard? We were awarded the Workhorse of the Year for our council, which I think was really a huge honor. One thing I'm very proud of is it's very easy sometimes to honor an elected official. You give them an award and they go to your dinner. Twice, 2 of these awards actually represent our people. They were not given to Judge Murphy. They were given to the staff of the magistrate court and given by our bar association, by legal aid. And so that means even more to me that our staff is recognized. These are the names of our judges. Y'all get to see me all the time, and there are lots of people that stand behind us 24 hours a day making this court work, and this is their photos. You can see on the picture, we have young and old, black and white, different ethnicities, but what you can't see from this picture is the diversity of experience, all different practice areas, and this is another core commitment of our court to make sure that we are, really reflective of our community, and we're very proud of our judges. It's a true community service, which I'll speak about later. So our structure, that's a little overview, and I'm just going to dive into each of our divisions, tell you a little bit about what they do for our community. Civil division is our largest division. In 2010, it's a key date. I've got a chart about it later. At the state level, filing fees were increased for state and superior court. When that happened, a large number of cases, including eviction cases and certain civil cases, migrated from state and superior court to the magistrate court because the filing fee in magistrate court stayed low. The staffing never kept up with the increase in cases, and we'll show you in a chart what that looks like later. So our civil division handles small claims. Those are claims worth less than $15,000. You can think of those claims, it's all kinds of stuff. It could be a credit card debt, it could be a dispute with a mechanic, a contract dispute. It could be literally the cases you see on Judge Judy. The producers of those daytime television shows actually come to our court, go through our files and try to find interesting cases, and then they offer both sides money to go on TV. But any number of cases, and what we always say is, no case is too big or too small for our judges, because when 2 people come in with a lawsuit about $200, that may not seem like a lot of money to some people, but to some people that may be the difference in making rent that month or not. So it's a mantra that we preach: no case is too big or too small once it's in the courtroom. Obviously, the civil division also handles landlord-tenant cases, which you've heard much about over the course of this pandemic, and also garnishment cases and other assorted cases. One key fact about the civil division, they serve as our front line in receiving telephone calls from the public. We don't have a dedicated call center. People are doing everything. People are taking calls, answering people at the window, filing in documents. We are getting 1 new call every other minute, 9 hours a day. Every other minute. You can't resolve a call in a minute. And so the volume of calls is extraordinary. And that's something that I don't want to slip, because something that attorneys always tell me is, in Cobb County, when you pick up the phone and call for help, a human being answers and they try to get to where you need to go. And so that's something that we're hoping to address in this budget proposal. Our warrant division is famously the division that operates 24/7. This is like Waffle House. It does not close, period. Because as long as there's law enforcement patrolling the streets of Cobb County, there's a judge and a clerk at the courthouse ready to assist. Our courthouse is actually open to the public 24/7 because there are certain interactions that the warrant division has with the public. We try to be extremely efficient. EWI is our electronic warrant interface. So even before the pandemic, we were taking these warrants, these search warrants and search warrants and arrest warrants were being done electronically, where the law enforcement officer would be at the precinct or at the jail, and the judge would be at the courthouse. It saves travel time back and forth. So we're very proud of that and always looking to improve that. Right now, we're rolling it on where law enforcement officers can actually access it from the laptop in their vehicle, always adding improvements to that EWI system. Warrant Division, believe it or not, in Georgia, a private citizen can apply to have another private citizen arrested. And this is a very common procedure that sometimes law enforcement indicates they're not going to intervene in any particular situation, but they'll point and say, you can apply for a warrant yourself at the magistrate court. And so that's a very important thing we do, and that's private warrant applications. Good behavior bonds. First appearance hearings we're very proud of. Under the Constitution, depending on the nature of the arrest, you have to have a hearing within 48 or 72 hours. We all love the Constitution. We don't put people in jail without telling them why. And what I'm very proud of is we do this the best of anywhere in the state. All the other big counties, nobody does this like we do. We do first appearance twice a day, every single day. So if somebody is arrested, they're going to have an opportunity. A judge is going to look at their case and see if their case is appropriate for bond. They're not going to have to wait the weekend in jail for a judge to come in on Monday morning. So we're very proud of that. And again, even before the pandemic, that's done by video conference. That's for safety and for cost, that the person in custody remains at the jail, and then the judge is, as the sheriff's office calls it, uptown here at the courthouse. We also do no-cost wedding ceremonies. I love the weddings. That's a positive thing we get to do. Did you know we don't have to do that? We don't charge, we don't take a filing fee, and we don't have to do that. That is a public service that we do for Cobb County. We're on appointments right now because of the pandemic, but generally it's just an open ceremony. And I had to throw in a bunch of wedding pictures. My folks know I love weddings. We love helping people out. And so when somebody needs an emergency, they always come get me so that we can do that for them. Our criminal division has four main functions. Number one, probable cause and bond hearings. That is the first hearing in a criminal case where there's a prosecutor and a defense lawyer present. And that is for folks that are in custody that have not bonded out to go ahead and kick the tires on the evidence in the case. So the police officer comes to the courthouse, both lawyers, and the judge makes a decision. No bond hearings. I actually was scheduled to do these at 1 o'clock before coming over here today. We make sure that everybody has an opportunity for bond. So if bond has been denied at the time that a warrant is issued, we automatically put folks in custody on what we call a no bond calendar to make sure that a judge, a prosecutor, and a defense attorney take another look at that case to see if that individual can get out, even before they've hired an attorney. County ordinance calendars. This is obviously a very important function because I'm sure this occupies a lot of your email box and your phone calls. And so not only do we deal with county code, but health, building, animal control, fire, PD, any county ordinance violation comes through the magistrate court. If the folks request a jury trial, it goes to state court. If they resolve their case or have a bench trial, then we keep it in the magistrate court. So that's obviously a high volume function that we perform. And then vertical prosecution means the magistrate court assigns the cases for superior court. It's a whole process of random assignment. It takes a lot of work. IS is a big partner in that, and so our criminal division takes care of that. Accounting division, I famously call this the we don't keep the money division. They handle when folks are mad about their fines or their filing fees, none of the money stays with the court. It all passes through to the general fund or any statutory fund. So accounting accepts the filing fees, accepts fines and payments, processes our garnishment cases, and then makes sure all of that gets where it needs to go. Rental assistance, I'm not going to spend much time on this because I know y'all are obviously in depth on rental assistance right now, and you know our court's hard work in this department to work with the providers that you've funded through the federal dollars to make sure that landlords and tenants alike have access to this funding. Pretrial services, this may be a part of our court that is less familiar to you. These folks are not sworn law enforcement, so that's kind of a key, so that when they're not probation officers, they're not police officers, but the role they play is very, very important. When a judge releases somebody on bond, if that person needs a little extra supervision to make sure that they're not going to get in trouble with the law again and keep our community safe, the judge has the option of having a pretrial officer supervise that person and make sure they're not using drugs and alcohol, committing new offenses, not contacting the victim if they're not supposed to do that. And they do that through all of these different ways on the slide. And then we have routine calendars where folks come in if there's been an allegation that they're not following their bond, or they're not following their bond conditions. We also assist the Superior Court. So this is one of those things where Cobb County is a great county because the court system is a collaborative system across all classes of court. So all of the functions on this slide are actually functions that are exclusive to the Superior Court, but the 10, going on 11 Superior Court judges enter an order each year, which allows the full-time magistrates to assist with these functions. And these are some very important functions. TPO Court, we do that 8 times a month. It used to be more than that. That's temporary protective orders for domestic violence cases. So that's another thing that during the pandemic couldn't stop. If somebody is, if they're experiencing violence in the home, they must be able to come to the courthouse and get an order to make that stop. Our Marietta, Cobb, Smyrna Narcotics Task Force Court, that runs 7 to 12 days a month, including jury trials. For that class of cases, the chief magistrate actually sits as an assisting superior court from the beginning to the end, from arraignment, when folks are informed of the charges, through the trial of their case, probation, revocation, appeals, the whole case. The no bond calendar I've already touched on. We do that every week. Bond revocations, if folks have allegedly violated their bond conditions from pretrial, we have a calendar for that. You heard a little bit from our district attorney about our early intervention court pilot program. It actually launches on Monday. We're very excited about, for low-level, simple drug offenses, we want to get those folks back to court as soon as possible so that we can get them into diversion programs and get them into our accountability courts. The status quo right now is you are arrested for a simple drug possession case. You're going to wait for the GBI. No offense to our friend Vic Reynolds and the GBI. He just needs staff too. You're going to wait 6 months, 8 months for the GBI to test that substance to make sure that the drug is a drug, and then the case is going to come to court. In that 6 to 8 months, the individual is not getting treatment. The individual may reoffend because they're not getting treatment. So the whole point of this pilot is to advance that whole system a little bit earlier.
I just want to add that the Board of Commissioners helped support the DA in addressing this program when we made some modification to our budget earlier this year.
That is correct. And we did not come with an ask at that time.
Yeah.
That we are trying to, for now, we're trying to do it within our current means.
Okay.
As the pilot goes forward, if it shows to be a success, that will be part of our 23-24 ask.
Okay.
There are also certain warrants, believe it or not, that only a Superior Court judge can issue. Again, for efficiency's sake, instead of going to find a Superior Court judge, we handle those matters for them. And then Pretrial Services itself, which is 11 employees, is actually part of the Uniform Superior Court rules. So that whole division is actually a division of the Superior Court, but some 25, 30 years ago, all the players at that time decided it was more efficient to have the chief magistrate supervise that division. So that division has been in the magistrate court budget for quite some time. Added value. To me, it is not enough to fulfill our statutory duties. There are lots of competent lawyers that could take my job and fulfill our statutory duties. We have to do more for our community. We are the people's court. So these are just some of the things that I know you already know about that our court has done in the community. The second chance event and desk to make sure people's records can be restricted and expunged. I signed almost 30 orders from that desk today, which is giving 30 people, a new lease on life right now when jobs are plentiful and they can, use that clean slate to get a good job. Tpo Compliance Court was something we've added since I've been there. Every domestic violence temporary protective order you issue, you're required to have the respondent, the person perpetrating the domestic violence, complete counseling. But LiveSafe was trying to kind of help enforce that. And that's not their core mission. Their core mission is to help the survivors of domestic violence. So that's one thing that we did without coming to this board for additional help. Essentially, I took a pretrial officer, reassigned her duties to help us on the civil side of the house supervise folks to make sure they get their domestic violence counseling so that they don't come back to court either with a criminal case or with another TPO. You know about our on-site rental assistance and legal assistance through Cobb Legal Aid, and we again thank this board for your leadership because we really are a national model. I've spoken to groups from Illinois, Arizona, our state of Georgia, obviously, all about what we're doing here. We had the opportunity to speak on a White House call, and folks are just amazed by what this community is doing in this area, and we could not do it alone. So I again thank this board for what you've done. Our community filing event at Commissioner Sheffield's Tenant Forum and Job Fair, that was a great event. That was the first time That was the picture of one of the first pictures we had. That was the first time that I know of that any class of court has ever offered to accept filings somewhere other than the courthouse. We brought the courthouse to the people. And that's landlords and tenant alike. We don't pick and choose. If a landlord wanted to file an eviction, we'd stamp it in and file it. We're here to serve the entire community. We wanted to be doing a lot more of that. We think there's a lot of opportunity as we continue to come out of this pandemic to be in everybody's commission district, and we're very excited about that. Our vaccination clinic, in conjunction with our sheriff, was a great success. We had more folks vaccinated than we really thought that day. It was wonderful. We partnered with the law library. I call them the law library because I'm on the law library board. With the library, with the Cobb County Library during the census. We brought a census kiosk. The magistrate court served some of the most hard to count folks, the most vulnerable population. So we called the library and said, hey, let's have a kiosk right here when they're doing their court business. So that was a great success. We serve statewide. When you're on a magistrate court in the metro, folks look to you for leadership. So our current council president for the whole state is one of our part-time judges. We're very proud of that. The executive director of our Access to Justice for the whole state is a magistrate judge. And then I have the honor of serving on the COVID task force for the whole state, making sure we're keeping our people safe while we conduct court business. And we're proud we never closed here in Cobb County. That is some more of us. That's Christmas Day. That really is Christmas Day. The guy in the white shirt is Judge Chesbro working on Christmas Day, and the person in the blue mask is Darson. He's one of our clerks working on Christmas Day, so we really do never close. I included this slide. We are working all the time. You know about the 24/7 Warrant Division. This calendar represents what goes on in courtrooms. As you can see, this was just a snapshot, August 2021. Every single day, almost every single day, there are at least 2 courtrooms running at the same time. We don't have dark courtrooms when you come by late in the afternoon. I invite anybody to come at any time. Something is going to be going on. We maximize our space. We maximize our people. There are no days off, as you can see from that calendar. We're just talking about how we're going to cover the week between Christmas and New Year's and what we want to do. So that's that slide. Our caseload, we use the numbers from 18 and 19 because the pandemic year is obviously still, the numbers are a little bit strange. Civil cases, so that's evictions and small claims. You're looking at approximately 40,000 cases a year. Warrants, you're looking at approximately 12,000 warrants issued in that 24/7 Warrant Division per year. Ordinance violations in the 4,000 to 5,000 range. So this is a tremendous amount of cases coming through our court system. And everybody deserves to have their day in court feel like they're the only one. You can't come to our court and feel like you're one of 40,000. It has to feel like it's your day. So how are we going to move forward? Some challenges. Employee retention, we asked HR to pull our numbers. Our numbers, the turnover rate for our court right now is 33%. The only organization that can survive a 33% turnover rate and succeed is apparently the Atlanta Braves. That's it. A magistrate court cannot survive like that. And that number, if we actually broke down the math for my tech grads, that includes our 18 judges, which we only lost 1 judge because she moved out of state. So our real turnover rate is even higher because the judges don't generally turn over once they're with us. Competitive pay is obviously important, and as everybody that's come before you has indicated, beyond the scope. We're prepared for our meetings next week, but we start at less than $15 an hour. Our entry-level clerk is less than $15 an hour. I'm not going to call names, but they could drive up 75 and go to a big gas station with a little cute mascot and start at almost 18 with the same benefits and the same hours. I ask everybody that comes into our court on these bond revocations, ordinance cases, because a lot of times people will say they can't pay their fine, they can't do whatever. I'll say, what do you do? Where do you work? We had a guy in a pizza place shirt the other day, and he said, yes, Judge, I've got a great job. I can pay. I just can't pay right now. I just got the job. I'm making $19.50 at the pizza place. $19.50. I can't compete with that, and so that is becoming a struggle. Our judges, our part-time judges, depending on if they're newer or if they've served for a while, either make about $45 or $46 an hour. If Bill brought you an attorney that was going to charge the county $46 an hour for services, you would reject that lawyer. No lawyer in their right mind would do that. Now, obviously, we're not going to ask you to adjust the judge's salary up to an hourly rate that you'd see in private practice. It is community service. Those rates have overhead, et cetera, in them. But when you compare to the metro, our judges' rate is abysmal. COVID-19, I am proud to report that as of this month, all of our backlogged cases have been heard or been scheduled. However, the temporary positions that you provided our court continue to still be important because we can't go back to pre-pandemic scheduling where we have 150 cases, which could be 300 people in a courtroom at one time. So the temporary staffing you've provided is going to continue to be important with our staggered calendaring. Technology assistance, IS has done a great work for the court system getting us up and running. We need more help ongoing because technology is here to stay. Courts are going to adapt. You've provided this hardware through the federal dollars. We need somebody to help us. David Tyler, who you all have met and honored appropriately, he cannot help every class of court every minute of every day. And so that's just a shout out to our friends in IS that we really need help. And then, of course, our caseload is going to increase. Growth in the county, accessibility. Because people know we're always there and we're going to get to them quickly, they choose to file in our court when they have a choice to file elsewhere. And then emphasis. When you add extra code officers, they're going to make extra cases, and those cases have to go somewhere. When extra police officers come to the streets, when extra animal control officers are in the community, all of those cases have to go somewhere, and those cases will come to our court. Opportunities. We really want to make sure we're maintaining our customer service and our judicial service through training. I think that's probably a theme of folks that have come before you too. Training has always been on a back burner. And what we're talking about is not trips to Hawaii for judges. What we're talking about is when I go to a once-a-year clerks conference and I speak, and so my way to the clerks conference, which is in-state, is paid for, I meet judges from rural jurisdictions that close their whole court and have every one of their clerks there to learn. I bring one or two or zero. Yeah. And this is Cobb County. They say, well, Judge, where are all your folks? They're back working because I don't have any money for training, and I can't take the folks off their desk or the work won't get done. Pretrial services is a key to criminal justice reform. We want to get those officers, they're not sworn law enforcement officers, so they don't get the same kind of training that our Cobb County police get. We want to make sure they're getting the best possible. So there is a national accreditation program that some of them have been through. We want to make sure they're all through that. And we want to fuel them with technology. When a pretrial officer informs the accused that he is to take a drug test, how do you think she informs him? We mail a letter. Can you imagine that in 2021? A pretrial officer mails a letter to the people they supervise and says, come to the drug lab between this date and take your drug test. It's totally outdated and can really be fueled with technology, and so we're constantly looking for innovation there. Our early intervention court, I've already mentioned increasing access to justice by bringing the courthouse to the community, and then really standing up what we're doing in rental assistance into a full-time eviction diversion accountability court. This is our overall slide showing the percentage increase that we're proposing for FY23 is an overall 23.5% increase. This is not a random and arbitrary number. I only come before this board with needs, not wants. We went through a process where we asked all of our supervisors what they need to continue to do their job with the expectation I have for them to be the best. We took that list, we met, and we continued to get it down and down and down until it was needs, not wants. And we landed at a 23.5% number. Operating is a more significant increase due to obviously some of the material that's needed when you onboard new employees. That's training dollars, also dollars to be in the community. And we can kind of on a one-on-one basis drill down into the operating further. Personnel, it came in just under 23% with 11 new positions and 2 reclasses is what we are requesting. Starting at the top, we're requesting 2 court support managers, which would be top-level leadership, and I'll explain that on a slide to come. And then a court support supervisor. I want to highlight this position. The second one there is actually recreating our standalone mediation coordinator position, which would be funded by ADR, the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board. So that would be funds that would not come from the general fund, but would rather come from ADR. But it was indicated to us that we still have to request that that position be requested, and that still is in our bottom line number. We're also requesting a full-time magistrate judge and a judicial administrative specialist. It will be more efficient to have somebody there full-time to handle all of the cases instead of using part-time judges, and I'll explain that a little further. The judicial administrative specialist, you would think that every full-time judge has a full-time assistant. That is incorrect. In our court right now, we have 3 full-time judges, including myself. And those 3 judges, plus our court administrator, Ms. Phillips, we share 2 administrative specialists instead of each person working with their own specialist. So we're asking, when we add a judge, to just add 1. So it would still not be that everybody has their own assistant, but it would get us closer to where we need to be. A Judicial Administrative Tech 4, that's a lead tech position in the criminal division. Right now, if a criminal division clerk calls in sick, if our entry-level $14.64 clerk calls in sick, it is the supervisor that has to fill her spot. We have no room for error right now. And so what we'd like is to have the ability to have a well-trained lead clerk to be there as we increase what we're doing, and then really have a margin for error, that person is going to be working in the clerk's office, efficiently moving cases forward while also being available in the courtroom. We're requesting 3 Tech 3s. Tech 3 is the courtroom clerk position. The first would be assigned to the Warrant Division. Currently, the Warrant Division, for those civilian warrant applications where a private citizen can seek the arrest of another, because we don't have a courtroom clerk in the Warrant Division, we send 2 clerks. It doesn't make any sense to me. We send a courtroom clerk from the Criminal Division and a non-courtroom clerk from the Warrant Division. So we have 2 sitting there, whereas instead we could have 1 courtroom clerk from that division be there to make sure the criminal clerk is working on the criminal cases. We're also requesting 2 clerks to work in the clerk's office to make sure we're maintaining our customer service. We're looking at different models, whether we group it so that some folks are focused exclusively on customer service, answering the phones, answering walk-ups that come to the window, or some other model. But we are requesting 2 positions there to make sure we maintain our customer service because that is an increasing challenge. Pretrial, we're seeking 2 officers. All of our officers right now are categorized as Pretrial Officer 1. The county already has a Pretrial Officer 2 grade. We're the only pretrial office in all of Cobb County government, and there's nobody in the Pretrial 2 grade at all. So we're asking for 1 to be at the courthouse, which would, again, like that lead clerk, be a lead position, helping with training, helping get the caseload down, making sure that the division is running efficiently. And then we really want to expand what we're doing by having a second officer at the jail. Currently, we send 1 officer, she's assigned to the jail. She only works during business hours. If we had a second officer at the jail, that officer could be reaching more folks on the weekend or in the evenings. And what that officer is doing is literally interviewing the accused who have not bonded out. They may be folks that have bonds, but they just can't afford their bonds. And so that pretrial officer interviews them to see if they would qualify for one of the programs to either decrease bond or post a bond through the county, essentially, and go on pretrial supervision. So we think that's really a critical criminal justice reform. So those are the 12 positions, and then 2 upgrades. The first one, in the pretrial division, there is a clerk. That clerk's position, she runs criminal histories, she prepares files. That clerk was classified as a clerk 3. For some reason over the years, it got downgraded to a 2. We're asking that it be reclassed back to a 3. And then we have a part-time clerk in the criminal division that we're asking to put in as a full-time clerk. Right now, we have 1 clerk on the window doing that vertical prosecution. So she's focused on making sure that the cases are assigned to Superior Court correctly. When there's not the part-time clerk at the window, there's nobody to be answering questions from the public. I have this ordinance case, where do I pay it? When is my loved one's court date, et cetera. We run that thin that there's just nobody there. And so again, the supervisor has to step down and answer those preliminary questions. This is the graph I really wanted to hone in on here. The green line is dispossessory, that's landlord-tenant eviction cases. The yellow line is all other civil cases. So that would be garnishments, small claims, liens, things of that nature. The bottom is time, so it's 2001, 2002, all the way through 2019. And the red is staff. We made sure the scale is the same. So the scale is a 4-time scale from 5,000 to 20,000, from 50 to 200. You can see that jump when the filing fee went up in 2010. You can see that jump in cases, and staffing has remained flat the entire time. The cases have increased by 2x and 4x, and the people have remained the same. The only significant amount of people the court ever received right before I took office a few years ago, there was a significant employee theft in the accounting division. It's still pending. And because of that, internal audit did an audit and indicated we needed more positions to make sure something like that didn't happen again. And so we got a few positions there, one pretrial officer and a civil position. That's it. You can see how flat. No one can do that. If Burger King were selling 4 times as many burgers in 2009 as 2021, they would need more people to do it, and we just don't have more people. This is, I know it's hard to ask for leadership positions, and that's what we're asking in the court support manager. I've indicated, I asked our court administrator to make sure that that was the #1 item on our personnel list, not even the judge. The 2 court support managers are the most critical positions we're asking you for. This is a standard organization chart for a clerk's office. Even here in Cobb County, some of the offices, you usually have an elected clerk of court, a chief deputy clerk of court, and then for each division, civil, criminal, accounting, you have a court support manager, that's a grade 23, a supervisor at 20, and then you have a lead clerk and you have your clerks. So every division has all of those reinforcements and all of that leadership. This is us. When I got there, we had a clerk of court and there wasn't even the red box. We had a clerk of court, and then we go all the way down to grade 20 court support supervisors, and then we go to our clerks. The court support supervisor for civil, she supervises 18 people, just herself, 18 people. We added, the reason I have the court support manager box in red with an asterisk, that's actually a combined position. That person serves as a court support manager and as our mediation coordinator. So essentially what we're doing is asking, and that's too much. The pandemic has almost broken that position because it is too much for one individual to do. So this is the model we're asking to go to. We have to walk before we can run. We're not asking to get to that standard model that I had 2 slides ago. I'm not asking to jump all the way to that. What I'm asking is essentially to divide our court in half, to please give us some help, because the people in the middle are being squeezed. Those court support supervisors, I demand that they're the best, that they have to be doing these things in the community, they have to be answering phone calls, they have to be on the window, they have to be thinking outside the box, but then when one of their clerks calls in sick, they have to be with me in court, in the courtroom, doing regular clerk duties. So by breaking it in half, each court support manager, instead of having just 1 division, would have 2 divisions. And then again, in criminal, we're asking for that lead clerk because we do anticipate cases in criminal and in code continue to go up. So that's the model that we're asking for. I included this picture not because I love looking at pictures of myself, but to prove that I go to court. Y'all always see me here or in other places. Many of the chiefs, we have great chiefs in the metro area. I think if they were all here, they would tell you I go to court the most out of all of them. I'm in court approximately 4 days a week. That's too much. I cannot effectively administer a court of 75 people and be in court 4 days a week. I'm in court 4 days a week because I love it. I love what I do. I love being with the people, but also because I have no choice. This is a comparison to some other counties. We have 3 full-time judges, including me. That averages to 1 judge per 250,000 people. You can look and read that chart for yourself and see how that is significantly out of step with not only our brothers and sisters in the metro, but also much, much smaller counties. Now, I know I've got 1 lawyer, and I know I got a bunch of people that think like lawyers. Why didn't he put Gwinnett on there? I didn't put Gwinnett not because they have fewer than us. Gwinnett has 9 or 10, but they assign them differently. They assign them almost exclusively to Superior Court, so I didn't feel like it was a fair comparison. I know of no other court of our size that has 3 full-time judges, and I know of very few that are smaller than us that have that footprint.
So, sorry to interject. I see you're getting to the thank you, but, today we had a board meeting where someone was saying, don't compare us to other counties. We want to operate efficiently. So tell me, looking at this and considering that argument, Why should we have more judges? What does it enable you to do? Are we better because of this ratio? Is this a model that we would share with someone else? Or are there concerns with having ratios like this? And if you can help to substantiate that a little bit more, it'd be helpful.
There are significant concerns having this few judges. So, not to get into the weeds too much, but you'll see in our detailed proposal, our part-time line item is a very large line item because we don't have many part-time employees, but the part-time judges all run the Warrant Division. That division runs 24 hours a day. That line item has been underfunded for years. And so I don't have enough resources. I have to think about it every time I request a part-time judge to do even the smallest task because my budget does not allow for it. So literally, to bring somebody in when there's a stack of orders that haven't been signed, for instance, abandoned motor vehicles, if it's a really specific kind of case, but I'll tell you, the tow truck operators know about that kind of case. Those orders are what allow them to sell vehicles that nobody has picked up. When their lot is full, if those orders aren't signed, their business stops because they cannot bring any new vehicles onto their lot. I have to think about, when I want to catch something like that up, do I have enough funding to pay a part-time judge to come in for 2 hours or 4 hours to look at that stack of orders and sign them? When I'm bringing on a new judge to be trained, do I have enough money to bring a mentor judge from our own court to train that person? I only have about 2 judges meetings a year where I bring our whole court together, now of course by Zoom, to have our priorities. So when we're talking about these hot button items like no-knock warrants or eviction cases, I have to make sure that our judges are well trained on those items, and I have to think about it every time I bring them together because I don't have enough money to pay them. With more full-time judges, it just adds that value because they're in court, and when they're not in court, they can be doing these tasks that I'm paying somebody right now hourly to do, or they're just not getting done and the work is stacking up. So this, I don't know of a court that would say having fewer full-time judges is a more efficient model.
Okay.
And our judges, our full-time judges, it's almost exclusively a legal work job. I have all the administrative tasks on our court. Their job is to go to court and hear cases, and for cases that can be decided out of court on the pleadings, their job is to look at those pleadings and get orders out. And so, if you see fit to bring another judge to this court, that is somebody that, again, going back to that calendar, the colorful calendar, their name will be plugged in there, and you will see them constantly working to make sure that cases are heard in an efficient time frame. At some point, it's going to slip. At some point, cases are going to back up. Phone calls aren't going to get made. It's only because of the commitment of excellent people that we have that have been with the court for a long, long time that the wheels haven't fallen off to this point. And it's, again, those full-time judges are performing not only magistrate tasks, but superior court tasks. I don't like to talk about my friends, but we're cheaper. It's cheaper to do it that way than adding an additional superior court judge as well. And so that's an efficiency that the taxpayer can look at. That, I'm glad to take additional questions. We're also glad to, obviously, we're going to set up individual meetings with each of your offices after you've had an opportunity to take a deep dive into our numbers. I do, for those watching on YouTube at home, we are hiring. I looked at our roster this morning. We have 13 vacancies. So 13 of those 75 plus the temporaries are vacant. So please reach out and contact us if you want to serve your community. We're here and we want you to be a part of it.
Thank you.
So I thank you all for your time.
Yes, I see we have questions.
I have a few. Hopefully, they're not that long. The first of which is, I heard you mention the Eviction Accountability Court, and just wanted to know where that fell on the spectrum of a need or a want, and if that was represented at all in the requests, because it didn't sound like it was, but.
So an eviction diversion program or an eviction diversion accountability court, obviously having a full-time judge would help with that. I've thought that through. A full-time judge would be able to help with that program and help with the early intervention court program, certainly. So is it a need or it's a want? Right now, we all watch the county commission meetings. It feels like it is a need in our community. I mean, people come in public comment every week and ask y'all for help. And so one way to do that is by standing up an eviction diversion program once the emergency money is done. That program would, right now we're in an emergency. In an emergency, you have to make sure that those dollars are getting to landlords to keep tenants in their houses as soon as possible. In an eviction diversion model, once the emergency is over, you really are looking to help a situation become self-sustaining. So you're bringing resources to bear, like job training, like life skills, like job placement, bringing that together with private rental assistance dollars, which we've already talking to some nonprofits about that, and standing that program up. So to my mind, that's a need. If we use all of this momentum, all these federal dollars, and then they just run out one day and we're back to status quo where I have 300 people in a courtroom every Friday talking about their eviction cases, that's a lost opportunity.
Okay. Other question is the turnover, 33% that you displayed, does that include only FTEs? And what about the part-time hires that you do in order to fill in specific gaps? Does that turnover number include all of those?
I will get you the answer to that. That was the number provided by HR, so it's however they calculate it. We didn't change it at all. We have a few full-time positions outside of the judges. The full-time positions we have are people that regularly work. So we don't do it like other departments where it's seasonal or something like that. We have some people that just want to work part-time. And so our turnover rate, I'm assuming, would include the full and part-time positions.
Okay, thank you. The other question that I have was with regard to the previous slide where you were showing population. Looks like perhaps maybe a view looking at caseload might help with a little bit more perspective. And I would like to know what you think is the best ratio from a judge to caseload perspective. I know cases vary and the amount of content, but generally speaking, what a reasonable caseload is. And then to Chairwoman's point, perhaps maybe understanding what are some of the things that we have done that are efficient models as compared to our peers. I know we've illustrated areas where we outperform our peers, but what are some of the more efficient processes and techniques that we have used so that maybe, instead of the caseload being 1 to 100,000, it's 1 to 200,000 because we implemented this process and it gets rid of this requirement or what have you?
It's a fair question, and the reason I used population is because each court is so diverse. The magistrate court is different in every county. So for instance, in Spalding County, they don't do TPOs. They don't do temporary protective orders, where in the metro, most of us do. And so it's very, very hard to get a case per judge, apples to apples across counties. So using population was the roughest estimate we could come up with. I can tell you, that right there, we're the leanest court there is. We're literally at lunch talking about, I have a judge that is expecting she is supposed to work Christmas night from midnight to 8 a.m. and she would like not to do that. If she doesn't work that, I might work it for her because that's how skinny we're running. If that clerk calls out on the weekend, and we're dealing with this right now because in warrants we're so skinny, it's a grade 20 position that is having to fill in the clerk's office. When a clerk calls out, the court has to keep going because that part-time judge has a lineup of law enforcement officers that have called in for on-scene search warrants, arrest warrants.
Finish that story, so then next. So then that person isn't there, staff,
So
how does that impact the work, the system?
So what happens next if somebody calls out, then so let's say it's midnight to 8 a.m. and the person that's to come in at 8 a.m. has called out. The person that is there cannot leave until the new person is there to relieve her. The entire criminal justice apparatus of this county overnight and on the weekends is 2 people, 1 part-time judge and 1 clerk. If one of those people fail, one of us or one person that's not in this room is getting a call in the middle of the night to fix it. And somebody has to fix it. When a Cobb County police officer is on scene saying, "Judge, I need a search warrant right now to go into this house because it's a murder case," we can't say, "Sorry, the clerk called in sick." We have to make it work. And nobody does, even as efficient as this is, nobody does what we do. They don't have first appearance twice a day where our community has an opportunity for their bond to be looked at twice a day. In the metro, it's literally, and you ask lawyers, they'll say, "Come in on Monday. We don't do first appearance on the weekend. I'm sorry you got arrested on Friday night. You'll just sit until Monday and figure it out." We don't do that.
And I think what I'm trying to really get to is to understand the balance, that boundary line between lean efficiency and just not getting serviced, right? So if a stack of papers, the caseload ratio might be, and I'm using round numbers, not that this is any indicator, but one judge for 10,000 cases, right? And that might be something that is attainable through good process, and that would be lean efficient, whereas being not serviced, that 1 to 10,000, maybe the process isn't equipped for that, and they just, 1,000 cases are just sitting there. They can't get to them. And so I'm trying to understand where that line is from your perspective with caseload, with staffing, and certainly turnover, because turnover comes with a hefty price every time. Like you mentioned, you have to train them, you have to assign them, there are new processes, there are new tools. I really want to understand that balance.
And we'll work on that to try to get something together. This commissioner is a great, Commissioner Richardson, my commissioner, is a great data-driven individual, and I am too. And it's very frustrating to stand here before you because I don't have access to data because our computer system is so outdated, which you all fixed several years ago, and we're in the process of creating this new unified court case management system. There's no, and we've talked about this during the pandemic with eviction cases, there's no report I can run for certain things, but we'll keep figuring that out to kind of get you some information that'll be helpful to work through this. We'll be glad to do that.
No, thank you so much. And the only other thing was a comment, instead of customer service, maybe constituent services. That I know it's kind of the normal thing, but there's constituent experience, first-rate constituent service. I like customers too, but that's another idea if you were looking for any.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrow, yeah.
Thank you, Judge Murphy. That was a very good presentation, very detailed. And I just want to say kudos to you and your team for, especially during the pandemic, because the majority of the cases were the evictions, and I know you're overloaded now with the moratorium being lifted and getting back to somewhat normal. I think the slide that showed the increase in cases over time and the flat line at the bottom of staff not increasing to be able to manage the caseload more or less speaks for itself, that with what you've been through. But you also do a great job with code enforcement, with our code enforcement cases for our constituents, and we appreciate all the hard work you and your staff and judges do.
Thank you.
So thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Burrow, for that. I think you've done a tremendous job for Magistrate Court as far as being responsive, being visible, being helpful, thinking outside the box to consider yourself in the shoes of those who are coming before your courtroom. My questions are coming from anywhere. It's just help me help you, because these are things that seem extremely reasonable. I just need help so I can make the case to those that look to the way that we've done it and can look at that blip on the screen and feel like, well, you did it for 10 years, why can't you do it for 10 years more? You know, and that's the argument that we continually have, is because people continue to make gold out of straw. They just expect it. And we have an opportunity to recalibrate the reasonability of our operations here. Just help us in helping you, and this goes for all of our agency heads. It's one thing to benchmark and to say you have need, but the county, the commissioners have been dependent on you making gold out of straw, and so has the public. And so help us as to why now. You know, there's some things I know, like with the pandemic, people are thinking about the value of life and the value of their life. Do they really want to spend their time doing this? And we do have the shift from the pension now to a hybrid plan. There's nothing that's binding someone to say, I must stay here to pull this pension that's coming down. Maybe that's part of the argument. I just need help, and I know you're a strong leader, you're a thoughtful leader. Our agency heads are strong and thoughtful leaders. We need help to be able to have a response as to why these things are just, to help us be a better county and to be the best county. So that's where my comments are coming from. It's not to take anything away from the tremendous work that your staff continues to do. You put us on the national spotlight. You know, you've been highlighted with what you've done for evictions and with all the awards that you and your team are getting. I mean, it's been outstanding. So I just want to be able to be in a position to help.
We very much appreciate that, and I think, you know, we all get fired up because we're fighting for our people. We're fighting for our people, that it has worked for 10 years because of the excellence of the folks that have stuck it out. And I think why now is the pandemic is revealing the cracks in the system, that we never closed. You know, we did not close our doors. We continued because we're the emergency room court. We kept having court. And it was a lot of times those court support supervisors, those grade 20s, making all of that happen. You know, at one point, you know, you had at that very early stage of the pandemic where not everybody was in the office at the same time, but for our court, that was a very short period of the pandemic. Everybody had to be in the office every day very quickly to get the job done. And so thank you for recognizing their hard work, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue and continuing the dialogue with our community about how this proposal will help us to not only deliver the excellent constituent service that they've come to expect, but also advancing us as we all go forward together into, you know, these new models of justice that they are expecting in the future. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments before we close out today? Yes, our county manager, did you have any comments or questions?
I'll defer to the board first, and then we'll close out. Chairwoman, I have just one comment to make. Do you all have any other questions or comments? Okay. But thank you for listening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. We can certainly help you all to better understand how we got here. With all due respect to the judge, this was a tsunami coming even before the pandemic. We have been doing the best we can with what we have for a long time now. So you're right, Judge, the pandemic just exposed what was already there and exacerbated those resources that we have. That being said, we have two presentations for the next time. It would be Support Services and Cobb Douglas Public Health.
Thank you, Jackie, appreciate it. Again, Judge Murphy, thank you. Thank you to your team, Ms. Phillips, and I'm sorry I'm drawing a blank, even though I should know, but for your other Ms. Bryant, thank you for all that you do to support and run our court system, the people's court system, the court of first impression, the last resort, as you communicated. Thank you for your presentation today, and we look forward to doing our best to support you as you support our citizens here. Thank you.
Thank you.
That adjourns our work session for today.